On the Senate floor yesterday, Senator Bernie Sanders had some choice words for Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell about his rejection of the additional $2,000 in direct aid to Americans. Let's take a listen.
And let me just make it clear for the Majority Leader that 10 out of the poorest 25 counties in the United States of America are located in Kentucky. So maybe my colleague, the Majority Leader, might want to get on the phone and start talking to working families in Kentucky and find out how they feel about the need for immediate help in terms of a $2,000 check per adult.
So as David Sirota put it on Twitter, Mitch McConnell effectively got stuffed in the locker by Bernie Sanders. However, Democrats decided to immediately fold up their fight and give in to McConnell, effectively killing the push for a stimulus boost to Americans. Founder of the Daily Poster and editor-at-large of Jacobin, David Sirota joins us now to talk about what all just happened. Great to see you, David.
Good to see you.
So first, I actually want to start with the point that Senator Sanders was making there, because I'm not sure if he got his numbers from you, but this is one of the pieces that you've been really crunching the numbers on and pushing, which is that these Republicans are not just, voting against everybody. They're specifically voting against some of their most vulnerable constituents, and they represent a lot of the people who would be most directly benefiting from these stimulus checks, Mitch McConnell being one example. I mean, Kentucky, a state I used to live in, there are a lot of people there who are hurting, who would benefit massively from this direct payment, and he just doesn't care.
Right, and Kentucky is probably the best example because it is, compared to other states, it is one of the poorest states in the country. About 2/3 of Kentucky households make $75,000 or less. So they would be the ones getting the full $2,000 check at minimum. There's also married couples, so that would actually increase it even more. But the point is 2/3 of Mitch McConnell's state stands to gain from a proposal to increase the $600 checks to $2,000. Mitch McConnell's state has seen a 40% increase in food insecurity since the pandemic began. I mean, you can go through all of these numbers that are absolutely horrible and a real economic crisis. And the point is that the Senate Republicans have a chance to actually increase direct aid to the people who need it. And yet what we've seen is that they're not even willing to pass a measure that would help their own voters. I mean, it's even more incredible when you think about the Georgia senators. I would argue that Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue have the most power of any two senators in the Senate right now to actually move Mitch McConnell. If they said, listen, we really need you to pass these $2,000 checks, that they could move McConnell because they're, of course, up for election in these special elections. And again, about 2/3 of Georgia households make $75,000 or less, and they would benefit. So now you have a situation where Georgia's Republican senators running for re-election aren't using their power to force a vote that would help 2/3 of the voters, essentially, who will decide that special election.
Yeah, I think that's actually a great point, and one I hadn't exactly thought of, how much power they could have if they decided to exert. Of course, they don't want to vote for these checks. They don't really want these checks either. They want a face-saving gesture that doesn't destroy their political ambitions. And so that's effectively what McConnell decided to do here. He came up with this clever maneuver of, I'm going to put together the $2,000 checks with Section 230 repeal and this election fraud commission thing, knowing that Democrats wouldn't go along with those things, called a poison pill. So he engineered its failure, but provides the face-saving for his vulnerable senators in Georgia. At least that's what he thinks he's doing. So that was McConnell's piece of this, and he effectively now has blocked the checks. It's not completely over, but it doesn't look very good. But Democrats didn't put up much of a fight here either. Bernie Sanders had promised to withhold unanimous consent on the NDAA authorization, something that has to happen. I don't want to get too wonky here, but he followed through with his part of that commitment. But essentially all the rest of the Democratic caucus basically immediately folded, which is what you're reporting on today. Lay out how all of that went down for us, David.
So McConnell needed procedural votes because Bernie Sanders was saying, I'm not going to give unanimous consent. McConnell needs procedural votes to move the defense authorization bill forward. So a vote yesterday was a key vote where McConnell tried to move the defense bill forward. Bernie Sanders said, you're not moving it forward. I object unless you allow a vote on the $2,000 checks. McConnell said, I need to have now a roll call vote to move the process forward, to move the defense bill forward without having a vote on the $2,000 checks. And what ended up happening was that the majority of senators who voted for that motion, 41 senators, were Democrats. To vote with McConnell for his motion to move the defense bill forward without a vote on the $2,000 checks. So essentially taking away the leverage that the Democrats had to use the defense bill to compel a vote on the $2,000 checks. Only 6 Democrats, senators in the Democratic caucus, Bernie Sanders and 5 others, voted against the motion to proceed. It may have gone down had all of the Democrats voted the other way because there were a handful of Republicans who also voted against that motion to proceed. So it's a little wonky, it's a little procedural, but the point here is that the Democrats had the chance to not allow Mitch McConnell to move forward the defense authorization bill without a vote on $2,000 checks, and they ended up instead giving him 41 of the votes for that measure. Again, more Senate Democratic votes for that McConnell procedural measure than even Republican votes.
Yeah, so I want to read the list of the Democratic senators who, alongside Bernie Sanders, voted against McConnell here. So these are the people who did the thing that all of them should have done. It was Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Chris Van Hollen, Jeff Merkley, Ed Markey, and Ron Wyden. Like, I honestly, I mean, I guess I shouldn't be shocked, but what is with all the rest of them? Like, why would you just green light and say, okay, fine, oh, we lost, too bad, fine, go ahead and do what you want to do, Mitch McConnell? Why would you do that? What is their thinking?
Well, there's 2 things to remember here. This is not the defense appropriations bill, it's the defense authorization bill. And the point in saying that is that it wouldn't be like the government would shut down if the defense authorization bill doesn't pass. I mean, it's an important bill, but it's not the spending bill. So the fact that they couldn't muster votes to stop the authorization bill, and we've seen examples of authorization bills not passing, and it complicates things, but agencies can continue to exist. The fact that they could only muster 6 votes, the Democrats, against this procedural measure on an authorization bill, not the funding bill, is amazing. Now, why could they only muster that many votes? I think it has something to do with the fact that the authorization bill includes notoriously lots of programs that Congress people brag about authorizing for later spending. Oh, look at me, I authorized this defense plan or this defense weapon system or this other program over here. They go home to their constituents and brag about the defense authorization bill. And so they didn't want to risk having the authorization bill go down because essentially they support all of the programs in that defense authorization bill, and they don't want to get in the way of what the Pentagon wants.
Yeah, I mean, I'm completely disgusted by it. And noteworthy, which you bring up as well, Kamala Harris, Vice President-elect, who was the lead co-sponsor on a bill early on in the pandemic when she was still positioning in the Veep stakes to have $2,000, not one-time payment, but a month, voted to let Mitch McConnell have his way as well. So, David, thank you so much. Look, we always want to bring up what the Republicans are doing and the way that they led the charge in blocking this, but also the way that Democrats have this feigned impotence. Oh, we did all we could, and we really truly want if only the Republicans weren't so mean. This is a clear instance where they had tools at their disposal that they decided not to use. David, thank you so much. So great to have you.
Thank you. Have a happy New Year.
You too. Coming up, my colleague here at The Hill, Reed Wilson, on exactly why by the numbers 2020 was literally the worst when Rising returns.